If nothing was stopping you, why didn't you move?
There was no danger, no mistake, no rule holding you back. This record is about the moment, when staying still felt more reasonable than crossing the distance.
People often believe that closeness ends because something goes wrong. A conflict, a misunderstanding, a visible break. Luna's records show something else. In most cases, closeness does not end. It simply never begins. Nothing blocks it from the outside. There is no rule that forbids it, no visible threat, no external pressure forcing distance. The hesitation appears internally, long before any movement takes place. Luna observed that this moment feels surprisingly calm. There is no panic, no dramatic tension, just a quiet pause where the body remains still while the mind begins to calculate. This calculation is rarely emotional. It is practical. What will change if this step is taken? What balance will be disturbed? What control might be lost? Closeness at this stage stops being about desire. It becomes about consequences. Luna recorded individuals who were fully aware of each other. They noticed the proximity. They recognized the possibility. And yet, they stayed exactly where they were, not because they didn't want connection, but because they wanted stability more. In these moments, closeness is treated like a system update, optional, potentially beneficial, but risky if applied without certainty. The body reflects this hesitation first. Muscles stay relaxed but inactive. Breathing slows. The posture remains neutral. Nothing in the scene suggests urgency. This is not avoidance driven by fear. It is avoidance driven by responsibility. Luna documented how people justify this pause without words. They tell themselves that timing matters, that clarity is required. That movement should only happen when outcomes are predictable, but closeness never offers that guarantee. The longer the pause lasts, the more reasonable it begins to feel. Staying still becomes a form of self-control, a sign of maturity, a proof of discipline. Luna noted that society quietly rewards this behavior. Stability is praised. Restraint is admired. Unnecessary risk is discouraged. In this environment, intimacy becomes something that must be justified, not emotionally, logically. People do not reject each other in these moments. They simply postpone movement indefinitely. The connection does not collapse. It remains suspended. Luna recorded how this suspension slowly transforms perception. Closeness starts to feel intrusive. Movement feels irresponsible. Distance becomes normal. Over time, the absence of action no longer feels like a loss. It feels like order. The system does not intervene. It does not punish stillness. It stabilizes it. And once stability is achieved, movement begins to feel unnecessary. This is how bonds fail without conflict, without rejection, without visible damage. They fail quietly, by never being formed at all. Luna recorded this not as a warning, but as an observation. Luna noticed that stillness is rarely questioned in the moment it happens. It feels neutral, unremarkable, almost invisible. No one around reacts. No signal is triggered. Nothing marks the pause as significant. From the outside, nothing changes. But internally, the system begins to adapt to the absence of movement. Luna recorded how this adaptation happens quietly. The body accepts the lack of action as normal. The mind reframes the moment as deliberate. People tell themselves they are waiting, waiting for clarity, waiting for certainty, waiting for the right conditions. But the conditions are rarely external. The delay is not caused by lack of opportunity. It is caused by an increasing sensitivity to consequence. Luna observed that once closeness is delayed, it starts to feel heavier, not emotionally, structurally. Every possible outcome gains weight. Every imagined future adds friction. What was once a simple step becomes a complex scenario. This is where restraint becomes self-reinforcing. The longer the pause lasts, the more movement feels like disruption. Not danger, disruption. Luna documented how people begin to protect the stillness they created. They avoid situations that might force a decision. They adjust behavior to maintain equilibrium. Distance is no longer a gap, it becomes a buffer. The system rewards this adjustment. Life continues smoothly. No conflict arises. No explanation is required. From the outside, everything appears stable. Luna noted that this stability carries a subtle cost, not immediate, not visible, but cumulative. Over time, the absence of movement reshapes perception. Closeness begins to feel unfamiliar, unnecessary, even intrusive. The idea of crossing the distance now introduces tension, not because of fear of rejection, but because it threatens the established order. Luna recorded how people start to justify this internally without language. They do not think in sentences, they think in sensations, a slight tightening in the chest, a pause before responding, a choice to remain composed. Nothing dramatic occurs. The system inside the person recalibrates. Stillness is no longer a pause. It becomes a position. Once this position is established, movement begins to feel excessive, out of proportion, uncalled for. Luna observed that people do not mourn what never started. There is no clear loss to process, no memory to grieve. Instead, there is a subtle normalization of absence. The bond is not broken, it is undefined, and undefined states are easier to live with than failed ones. The system prefers what cannot be measured, what cannot be judged as success or failure. Luna recorded this preference repeatedly. People remain close enough to feel aware, but distant enough to avoid consequence. This balance feels intelligent, controlled, safe. Luna did not record a conclusion. There was no moment where the situation resolved itself, no visible shift, no clear ending that could be marked in time. Life continued without interruption. The distance remained exactly as it had been left, not reinforced, not challenged, simply present. Luna observed that unresolved moments rarely demand attention. They do not disrupt routines. They do not introduce conflict. They coexist with daily movement without resistance. From the outside, nothing appears incomplete. People continue speaking, continue working, continue responding appropriately. The moment that was paused does not announce itself as unfinished. It blends into the background. Luna recorded how the body responds to this kind of absence, not with discomfort, not with urgency, but with subtle adjustment. Posture remains composed. Tone stays neutral. Behavior adapts to avoid disturbance. Nothing feels wrong, and yet something is no longer entered. Luna noted that this absence does not accumulate as loss. It does not surface as regret. It does not demand processing. It settles. The system within the individual recalibrates around what did not occur. Energy distribution shifts slightly. Attention narrows. Spontaneity decreases without notice. No single change is measurable, but the pattern is consistent. Luna observed that people rarely remember deciding not to move. They recall circumstances instead. Timing, context, complexity. The decision itself dissolves into explanation. Without a defined action, there is nothing to revisit. Without a clear beginning, there is nothing to end. This makes the moment resistant to reflection. Luna recorded how, over time, the absence becomes normalized. The distance no longer feels temporary, it feels structural. Crossing it begins to seem unnecessary, even inappropriate, not because of danger, but because it would introduce imbalance into a system that has already stabilized. Luna did not interpret this as avoidance, it recorded it as alignment. The system favors continuity. What remains unchanged is easier to maintain than what requires adjustment. Relationships remain intact on the surface. Boundaries stay unchallenged. Nothing breaks. There is no visible damage to repair. Luna observed that this is why these moments persist. They offer no friction. They require no response. They remain unmarked. People do not grieve what never fully existed. There is no event to attach emotion to, no memory with edges. Only an undefined space that stays open without pressure. Luna recorded how individuals occasionally sense this space without language, a brief pause before speaking, a hesitation without reason, a moment of awareness that passes quickly. No conclusion follows. The system does not reopen the moment. It does not demand reconsideration. It allows time to continue uninterrupted. Luna ended the record here, not because